Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining Archangel Alts trading with you live without a net. And if your name is Annette, then you are welcome to join as well. Live without a net, we're not using stop loss, we're just using good judgment for the picks that we look for. And in this case, we've been having to wait for a bounce back, so I wanted to go ahead and capture this as we're working back in through TNT once again. Still a little bit sad to see Doc down. It was kind of a 1-2 punch as we've been, navigating things really well for a while. And the twist in the drop in volume on Bitcoin is the one that got us this time. It actually stayed within range. Bitcoin is currently hitting 39.57. So, I mean, it's staying literally in the same range, which is a really good thing. But just the small dollars down and even back up to exactly where it was before was enough for the volume that is dropping to cause a lack of sequence between TNT and Doc while we were trading them, and then some kind of spammy pump and dump type stuff going on in the background, so that took some of the volume as well. Not making excuses, but adjusting to what it is that has happened. But we're happy to see that there's a little bit of a bounce back happening, and so I'm actually kind of going in with some positions that I think, if it does have another drop before it continues back up, then, these will actually help to move things back up to where we already are, and they'll be good. And if they don't need to go in, then I'm kind of learning from the order book as I watch and let it move along. So, at some point when we are going over all of the basics in the free and paid sections of archangelalts.com, which I'm hoping everybody that sees this will go ahead and join. That would be great. We're going to go over what this means from the indicator side of things, looking at the charts, looking at the indicators, what everything means, the candles, the shapes, everything. And we're going to go over it from a unique perspective that you're not going to see in all places, because that's kind of where my strength is, looking at things from a creative angle. The math from the underneath the hood looks a little bit different from just reading things, and then you add a little bit of instinct into it, and usually we don't have hiccups like TNT and Doc. So very happy about where things are progressing. It's just taking a little bit of time. I don't believe it's been 10 hours yet. No, of course it's been, maybe 6 or 7 hours. It's gonna be fun to do this on sleep. Checking how this other stuff is doing, looking at the 24-hour. I'm going to flip it and look at the other side as well. So hopefully this isn't how short ONT's slight rise will be, but the quicker it goes up, the quicker it goes down, and gravity is heavy in crypto trading world for sure. I think that would make for an interesting video. I do believe it would. Okay, this is looking really good for what we were waiting on from, what day was it? Let's be totally transparent with this stuff. So, gone from 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So we're 6 days in on this last position on OST, and we have one other that is higher than that from earlier in the process. On our other side of things, we were right around here. Gotta hate it when it hovers around 666. It's just for irony, if nothing else. But I believe that we're looking like right there at 667, which I actually do like that number. But I'm trying not to be one of those, zillion number people. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Oh, that's looking good. So I like the wider spread here. Oh, it's one of those trading cycles, it's tough to push through. I had to kind of wait out the 3 to 6 range that pushing through, because I see that some of the things are starting to do what we were hoping they would do in the previous cycle. It seems to me like it's less about knowing which times of day are the best trading times and just trusting that it's going to be sometime in this group of 2 hours and that group of 3 hours throughout the day. Sometimes it's nicer to you and allows you to have wider chunks and get a better sleep in the midst of it. But we're pushing for, extreme goals, and that, extreme times, extreme measures, whole thing. So just happy to see that it has been doing a little bit of a climb back up in the 430s. Hopefully it's going to be able to continue that process, as Bitcoin is sitting at only about $71 million 24-hour volume on Binance. Binance is a very big slice, but even more importantly is that it provides a very accurate cross-section of what the reality of Bitcoin is. Some of the other sites give you a very unsteady picture of the actual value of Bitcoin. And the only issue that I have, of course, having too many stable coins, it's not like you just spread it out over it equaling $1 and everything's okay. It does actually dilute the connection of one blockchain to another, to another, to another. So there's interesting things happening underneath. Just going to test a little bit lower. Like to watch where the effects are. You would think that you can see the effects of everybody's positions that they put in the most in something that has, is very, very, very low in value and very low in volume. And this is actually neither. I mean, 700 isn't really a tiny amount for a coin this size. It shows a little bit of health, but the problem is that, people need to step in and ramp it up in order for the liquidity to really work in our favor. So it is kind of hovering around the same place now. It was starting to pick up. It's a really good sign that it was able to hit that 435-ish mark. So if it can cross beyond there, then that would be really awesome. It's not, stuck in going Morse code on us over here like we see yet. So that's good. It actually looks like it's headed back up. I'm expecting to see 433 fairly soon. That may be being overly optimistic because Bitcoin is hovering a little bit. So since we're trading in pairs to Bitcoin and not, directly to fiat or one of the other coins, its movement is extremely impactful in the process. But every coin has its own movement going on top of its relationship to Bitcoin. It's something that you really don't see in the traditional markets at all. That's why I love crypto. I like the complexity, but it also allows you to visualize things that are happening that you wouldn't see otherwise. So, the movement being linked into something other than an extremely stable coin, you get to see things that are happening. And it's ironic because the stable coins, yes, they do represent $1 and they hold to that, but they hold to that while still having that connection to the blockchain. So it will even, actually just change it by a penny or so up and down. And, it's very strange the way that they decided to do some of the ones that are not Tether, like PAX and some of the others. They kind of set it to, an unusual way of valuing that relationship to the dollar. So I'm watching this important transition to see whether this can be the first of many, whether it's got its own wings Hey, Archangel Alts will give you wings, lifting up your crypto. Fly to the top. You can do it. Okay. And just recognize where all of these coins, where they are the strongest and where we're hoping to see them be able to get, as far as signs of just good, healthy movement for now. I wouldn't call it, a change over to a bull market at all, but just what's healthy for the coin before it gets any kind of extreme movement upwards. We really want to see this in the 800s. People actually have an expectation for this to, be at an 8 or 900 minimum and to be more in the 1400s. There's a lot of frustration there, especially they launched the BTT, which had a really strong surge to begin with, but now everybody's stuck in those extreme positions. And I just warned, please don't get stuck there. Hate seeing people get stuck because, not only is it something that's avoidable, and it's just, it's much easier to avoid those kind of pitfalls once you know a little bit more. Early adopters tend to get a little bit brainwashed by strong leaders that say things that are only to their advantage, unfortunately. Fuel really is an interesting one, and I know it's not very high in value. I hope that it's not, a dumb project. We'll look extensively in the background of a lot of these. But, we should be able to see it in the, 350-ish range. S&M actually, 550 isn't uncommon, and its volume is extremely low there. BNT always is sitting in, among the lowest of the volume, but the community idea using smart contracts, and making it very easy to trade from one coin to another inside of a very specific network. It's the right idea. It's led by kind of a dangerous guy, but, he is the most underrated, unknown economist of the world. I've studied him since 2011. Nano, we were happy to see it break the 2300 range for certain. We really need to see it more in the 4,000 to 6,000 range. From the 2 to 4 to the 6. There's TRX. Heading down a bit. XMR, not to be confused with the G that is now gone. It was definitely a scam that was not XMR. Fund has been sitting at half where it should be for a long time. It really needs to start in the 200s to be healthy where it really belongs. Encash has been holding on at 47. When we went in to, clear some of our intentionally long-term positions in cash, it was going from 46 to 49, just over and over again. Not at all concerned. I know that when it's in the mood, it'll do what it needs to do. Poe has been, a little bit disappointing. We've already gotten in and out of our positions. We guessed exactly the right place. Well, I mean, is it a guess? When you read it right, your analysis was just right, or your gut was right. But it really tends to live around 132. And look how narrow those highs and lows. It's only made a movement of 5. So even at this value, it should be able to get more volume if there's more interest. And it's just one of those coins. Don't know, the fully... all of the information about their project, their team, all the fundamentals that I'd like to go deeper on all of these coins. Tend to, if I'm ever worried in the short term, I'll go and run and read up on their website and read about what people are saying in Reddit and all that kind of stuff before going in. But at this point in time, I've done that so many different times. I just trust what I've already studied in the past, even if I can't exactly pull up the memories right then. If I had decided to go in, I know that it was based on those things already. So, Doc and TNT, just both kind of frustrating right now. We want to see this be able to push through the 240s again and just get through those positions. But it's been losing volume as Bitcoin has been losing volume, and that, wind beneath its wings, using convenient Archangel alt metaphors. It just kind of slowed down. So we don't want to see that happen. We want to see it rejuvenated. And looking to see whether, Saturday morning might be part of that process. I mean, the fact that there is just kind of looking to see how slow the trades are going right now on Bitcoin. It is a really very dramatic slowdown. I'm seeing as much as 8 seconds go by in transactions. It's picking up a little bit right now, but I mean, that just almost never happens with Bitcoin. So as we analyze just in the short term the health of these positions, make sure that I'm actually sitting in front of the mic here. As we look at the health of these positions, you can see the 240s are around here. We'd really like to see it. What is my highest? 262 is the highest position. So you can see here's the 260s. It hasn't been that long. We're looking back just, a couple of days. It stayed over that. Over here is, where it had first dropped beneath there. So really the first healthy time before that being, back in middle of December. And I mean, looking at this broadly, we're going to see days and days that pass that are, every single thing past that is much higher than where our current position is. And, I always like to look back to what happened at the hard fork in Bitcoin Cash. It's a big one. That's one of the most influential things that happened. So it's been trying to recover more in the 500 range since that crash. So one can expect, between what it had just been doing after that, this is where the recovery is starting to happen. And this being kind of a mirroring of that over here, we should be, able to expect it to hit the 250s in a fairly short period of time. And what's going to depend on that is whether there's, a pick back up in pace with Bitcoin. That kind of just depends on some of the bigger traders and what their decisions are. What are their plans? Are they wanting to allow it to, fall for a little bit longer and then get back in? Or, are they looking to let it fall in order to short and then pump up against a stable coin? There are so many different angles. If I were looking to manipulate the market that way and I had lots of Bitcoin, those are the kind of things that I would do. My pro crypto strategy for all of this is just no shorting. I don't want to bet against the very things that I want to see get mass adoption. So, I'm going to be doing a video that's just kind of food for thought. on the topic of why the current mining strategy, I think, is flawed, and it's not healthy for the growth of the coins. So, I think that anything that can be done that brings attention and interest to the entire field, that is also not harmful to the health of the field, those are important things to consider. So yeah, it's just Bitcoin is just, even though it's holding at 39.53, which is great, the more the volume drops, the more that affects its relationship to other coins. So we're having a hard time propping these guys up, and let me look at the longer term just to kind of see it from that perspective again. It's always tough when you're waiting it out. You can see just right here alone, it's almost never below where our position is set. So, in TNT, what we're looking at the highest of 457? Yeah. And obviously we want all these to clear, but, I don't like to just always just completely set it and forget it. So if there's something within this range that works in our advantage, I don't want to miss out on it because I was off by just one and decided to shut my eyes for a second. Obviously, the limit orders will take care of themselves if they're all within the right range. But, typically it's sitting, once again, here is the effect of the hard fork on the entire system. We're still almost within trading, but this is a recuperation from that period. Before, it had dropped as much as 222. And look how quickly, of course, this was not all just, 909. This was an entire week's movement. All of these were. So within that time, we saw from 222 all the way up to 342. And it had come down over here just in months 7 and 8, which were, some of the largest drops that any of the coins saw. So, I would expect it to be working its way back to 8 and 900. I kind of think that's what this recovery period is about. It's not a bull run. It's just things are slowly rising back to what their real value is. This extreme drop is not, it's not settling down to what these coins are actually worth. It's a, kind of extended valley that they're all going through. All right, so kind of what I was waiting to see, Bitcoin did a drop down to 39.49, and so now I'm looking to see, how long is that response going to be, and what is the impact going to be over here. It's kind of funny. I was actually canceling positions before it did it, but the second I saw it in the corner of my eye, I was like, "Yep, that's what's going on." Okay, so this is actually not a bad sign that it's already at 427 when that drop happened. This is one of those times where it's possible that if people start buying back into Bitcoin right around this time, it may lift up our positions in DOC and TNT at the same time. Okay. So the thinking is right just in that tiny little lip of it first. Now, if it only does it by a few dollars, the problem there, once again, is that it just kind of brings us back up to what it was able to do on its own. So just continue to watch that. In the meantime, these two over here are just kind of getting pumped. They're not usually doing that incline on their own, especially Loon. I have nothing against them, but that's a little extreme for what they would normally do just in normal market movement. ONT, on the other hand, has really just been doing a steady incline with Bitcoin and benefiting from that. So that doesn't surprise me. RLC doesn't surprise me. You can just see that these are a little bit more extreme. So as they're going up, people are pumping them. CMT, a little bit of the same thing. Probably already in. No, not so much. This and this were extreme pops of some sort. Can't claim to know whether they're being intentionally pumped or not. Storage was, it actually popped up to the top of the list the other day with this. It's kind of nice to, be following these extensively enough to kind of have a memory for where these are coming and going. ONG is the gas for ontology coin, and it was just recently launched, and it's kind of finding its sea legs there. It's not actually doing 10,000 BTC on a regular basis in volume. Surprise, surprise. Okay. INS is interesting. It's kind of sitting low. Yep. It's sitting kind of low. Most of these were not affected by, we've been really good to choose the right positions, get in and out. And the ones that we're holding, we've tried to analyze as carefully as possible. I find Steam interesting. I keep coming back around. I hope that they're for real with their project. They might be, able to lead the way for how it's done for others. Datacoin tends to be pretty nice to trade. It's been getting a little bit too narrow. If we can see something more like this more regularly, then that's really good for us. I don't like the fact that the best upwards movement is slowing down over here and over here. So that's what we're seeing with all of it. We are not at all close to a bull run. I mean, it could happen, knee-jerk instantaneously because of the people that would be behind it. And then, people have very short-term memory once something good does actually start to happen. So, it could pick up really at any time. I don't want to be one of those triangle drawers that, are showing you every single angle, and therefore that's the reason that it could do these three different models that are in complete contradiction to each other. It's playing a little bit too safe. So, I mean, I'll make it clear if I'm not making a prediction and just talking about here are the different possibilities. This is what you could see happen, but I'm not trying to stake my claim on saying, see, I told you. Like, well, yeah, you told us all three different scenarios. Yeah. Uh-huh. So Ethereum sitting at a not very healthy 5,000 24-hour BTC volume. And all of these, yes, they do have a direct correlation to, we're sitting exactly flat. And that's not where we want to be. We were just right there. Key fell below 70 again. Isn't that interesting? I mean, it's got plenty of room to go down, so, I mean, I don't want to suggest that it can't go further, but it's really unusual for it to sit below 78 for any extended period of time. Just show you, we're used to seeing it at least cross through there almost always. All of this is still in the 70s. So 68, 69, pretty unusual. I mean, if we had, an extra 2 or 3 Bitcoins sitting around, I would easily put them here and just park them for a few days. Maybe let one of them just go ahead and make profit there and then break the other one up into a few of these positions, assuming that within a week or two we would have that money back anyway to do the same thing all over again. Slower, longer, midterm positions on top of those, very fast circulating that we do so well with. Usually, so annoyed with. I mean, I'm over focusing on it right now because the market's slow enough to where I have time to do so. And it's not a bad thing to do before getting a little bit more rest. Sleep, it's important for the mind, for the body. The Lord gave it to us for a reason, and when we're kids, we usually don't like it. When we're adults, we can't get enough of it. So I ain't no spring chicken. 309 to 311. I mean, over and over again, 307 to 310, 309 to 311 to 12 is this safe little pocket to pick up little small pieces of percentages. We're just, we are moving at a slightly more cautious, slower pace while we've been rolling out all these videos and kind of stretching out to our first new friends out there in YouTube world. It's been really fun It's exciting to meet you guys. And it's, it's energizing to see that this stuff is already helping so early in the game. And I haven't covered any of the extensive stuff on charts and indicators and everything. Just watching what we're doing and working alongside of us. Some of you have already been succeeding in your first trades, and some of you that have been trading a little while are already improving in those trades. So I'm just really excited to see that. So why are you guys even still here? I mean, really, can't do anything more with you. So glad we're done. Yep. So we did really well with the drops in the 5 delistings that have just happened with Binance. And I think that they probably made the right decisions on those, and, good riddance. They're not really going to find a home with anything to do with those wallets. Unfortunately, my only gripe is I think that they should allow traders to see the decision-making process over like a 3-month period. These coins are, we evaluate all of our coins. Here's where everybody is in standing, smiley face or a 5-star range or something along those lines. And so they show, we look for communication. We look for whether the projects are stalling out. We look for whether they give us feedback on things, and if the coin projects are genuinely just not making an effort, then people would be able to see that. And so they could scale off of their, whatever they may have already invested. There's a lot of people like myself that are not, the most serious of trading is not just speculation on, is this project going to succeed, or, I only do Litecoin, Ethereum, XRP, Dash, these types of things. But, rather looking for the opportunities where they are. This probably is one of the more painful ones right here. Yeah. Oh, it got pumped here because withdraw and deposit had been suspended on Binance, which led to a rather unusual thing where the value of BCD remained in its higher early value on Binance all this time, and nobody really noticed the variance like myself, because Binance's version of it, because it was holding where it was a very smart move on their behalf. It wasn't listed. I mean, it's the only time that it's been the one not listed on CoinMarketCap's listings where everybody looks to go get this information. So people knew the second that they opened up deposits that they could go from their positions, which are way down here on any other exchange, they could load them up on here really quick and then sell them off and make this huge gap. It was kind of like the opposite of a pump and dump. But, the dump came before the pump. The pump was just a holding position. So as people loaded up their coins here and started entering their positions, it caused a surge. And so people went higher and higher. We made some excellent money in here without knowing what was going on. And when it fell, we were like, oh my gosh, what's going on? We looked, saw this isn't even on CoinMarketCap. Look at where it is on CoinMarket. Oh my goodness. It was all through this range. It was down. So it's like, now I understand about the, being able to deposit on there. So, it's very tough to learn from a lesson that is, so unusual. You can't really watch for every single, coin withdrawal and deposit and add that into your model of whether to make a trade or not. It's just, more than any, it's more extensive fundamentals than anybody would be looking for. So our range in here, we were trading back over here. And over here, we made some really good positions, made some really good money. And then once this kind of came into play, it's not too terribly long from now. It's barely been a hold. But, it looks extremely good for whenever the others hopefully recover. This is the current dip that's happening right now in Bitcoin. Hopefully this can continue that trajectory, because eventually it's working its way back to at least the 34, 3300s. And then that may be that next wave. Let's see how long that would be. That'll be like another 2 weeks beyond here. If it doesn't do it this time, then it'll do it this time out, probably in late March. Hopefully earlier than that. If Ion gets a spike like the others are getting right now, then it could happen in a few days. That would be really neat. We're not desperate for it, but we like to see just, I'd like to be at 100% all the time. I really would. Wouldn't everybody? But we're still kind of, sitting in this holding range over here. So it's still, it's not really digging itself out of the 420s, unfortunately. I thought the 429, 431, 433 was a really good sign, which it was. That little perk right there. This stuff over here. It's really healthy looking. And then, Bitcoin has just been continuing to lose volume. So it's very slow right now. At some point in time, at least the Bitcoin trading will pick up at some point during the day. And we'll take a look at the news and other things from there. But in the meantime, we're in our holding pattern with these guys, 248 on DOC and 427 on TNT. So, I know, I hear you. It's like, don't you talk down to me. So I'm actually going to let that run for a second. I'm going to give this a couple of seconds here. So right now, this is not a direct correlation type thing, but right now, the $2 moves in Bitcoin are enough to make 1 point moves in TNT. So that is interesting. And $3 and $4 moves are enough to make one position change in DOC. So you can see that correlation to, 430 versus 241 right now between TNT and DOC. That spread in what its effect is from Bitcoin. And that's not always that exact direct correlation. First of all, people do go in on positions as they see the movement up. They think that they're doing buy low, sell high, but really, and we all get pulled into it. You have to have a lot of discipline. But I believe that people make the mistake of saying, not to trade on emotion. I agree, don't let your emotions lead your trades, but I do believe in emotional trading. I think that you do need to keep perspective and care about your positions, nurture your positions. For some reason, that has done us really well. So, I continue, I'm not nearly as, emotionally like up and down as I was in the early days when you're thinking, oh, that was $40. Oh, that was $80. Those are things, I wouldn't go out and spend $80 on a meal over and over again. So, it's terrifying to do that with imaginary numbers representing coins. But, you kind of learn to trust your instincts that, okay, when I do these positions, my money's not going away. It's just in a lower position on something that has value. So you just keep hoping that that value, remains something that people are trading on that value on the market. That's pretty much how it works. So within this current window, it's literally moving just enough to get a profit from it. And if it were doing so quicker, then I might actually just go in on, smaller transactions and just kind of pick up a little bit of profit while spending the time watching it. But I think that that's too narrow of a range. It's too risky of a narrow range. I really don't like to do anything less than something that I'm a third of the movement. If I only need to get, 0.5% from, let's say, like 425 to 427 or 8, then I would much rather see it going from 421 to 430, 435 even, and just kind of like, if we had, right, here's a good example, 428 to 436. So that is, positions of about 8. I would rather see 425 get in at 427 or 8, get out around 431, and then not worry the fact that it went higher than that because I know that it's coming back down. So, and I'm watching Bitcoin all along the way to know that that's going to happen. So as it's thinning out here, we're now at 69 million 24-hour volume traded against Tether, representing the dollar, which is the most important stable coin to keep an eye on there. I'm curious to test just how liquid at 789 it is. So even though it's going up right now, I'm going to test it there. Watching to see, yeah, okay, there's a lot of response there. So if Bitcoin were just picking up a little bit right now, it would be very healthy for TNT. I recognize this kind of movement, and that's what I do. I'm like the non-math equation version of a quant, I guess. I'm the guy that sees the patterns and does the math without understanding how to write out the formulas. I look at exactly what they're doing. They see the same kind of micro patterns and things that I do. It's kind of fun. And I've mentioned this before, but the visualization here, for me, the advantage that I had early on that I think led to developing a skill in this and trying to get out of my head and just kind of go more on the instinct. The more I know about the market, the more I just have to teach myself, move out of your way, go with your instinct. Train and retrain that instinct and test and retest that instinct to make sure that it stays sharp. But coming from a music industry background, recording, producing, writing, multi-instrumentalist stuff, obviously, even just if you think about music notation, but that was never my strength. When I went into the more technical, I had beta tested for other people and did my own audio software line, which is still out there and still does well. We've kind of allowed it to slow down a little bit over the past 14 months while working with a couple of labor-intensive recording projects and a hardware project that's very exciting. But through years and years and years, thousands, tens of thousands of hours visually analyzing things for the audio software, looking at waveforms that don't just represent music but represent frequency sweeps and frequency analysis, the way that notes and your bass, your treble respond to sound, sound pressure, sound levels, volume. There are so many similarities of how waveforms go into sine waves and recapitulation and things that you see on the market. But I would start to look at this, and I would not only look at the levels, but how quickly they move. The pace, the tempo of the market spoke to me as, a drummer. It spoke to me as, the guy that has spent all those thousands of hours studying the things that go into my extremely successful software. So when it came to this, I was like, oh my goodness, there's a place that can actually apply in the real world, not just in, my mad scientist cave with my gazillion different cables and all these ancient studio devices. So pretty crazy stuff. Glad to see ONT is still able to hold in that 2300 range. That's good. I want to see it be able to hold there and then move up from there. That's kind of what we want to see with Bitcoin. We want people to see the value in supporting its upward movement instead of trying to gain an advantage on those future contracts. No, that's not the way that the coins are meant to work. Don't try to force it into an old model. That model is always, having to survive the fact that there's an insider's advantage that other people will never be able to take advantage of. So, new frontier, folks. All right, so what happens if I lift these positions now? I'm going to see whether it just sits where it is or whether it reorganizes and gets a little bit of a pop. So there it is. That was my question. That was not in sync with Bitcoin. And at the same time, I can see that Doc did not move with Bitcoin at that same time either. Now Bitcoin is actually moving a little bit. So, I like to give you guys a little bit of a spark there. So 428 to 430, that was good. So we can see, how tough is that gap for it to fill. 0.47 is fairly significant with this much of this. We always look at whether there's a buy or a sell wall. So that's really not terrible. Could break loose at any time. Some people would see this as, an unfortunate, like, how is this going to do this? I actually think that the determination to sell this high is a good thing. I do. So once again, My curiosity is in what happens down here. I don't really want to pull it down from 429, but I'm curious to see what happens with those positions. You can watch kind of in this range. I want you to get the bigger picture while that's happening, but you can see that it recognized that there's more that it can pull from. So when you have your limit orders on the order book, that's where it knows that you have people that are looking to fulfill other positions. And we do see something good is happening there. Okay, so everything is reconfiguring itself based on the fact that there's a couple of thousand more on, in the chain, in the queue. So now we only have 0.23 that it has to make up in the difference. So now if we analyze what happens here, you can see the little boost over here. These guys are getting closer. I feel like I'm an announcer for a golf game. He's getting out the putter. Is he going to use the 9-iron? Look at how nicely that grass has been mowed. And he's carefully analyzing. He's looking. And he putts. Oh, and it was so close. Just went right around the rim and then just kept going. Clap, 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 clap. Okay, good. Good. I like to see that. So this is, the question where, hopefully somebody other than just the bots are actually watching stuff in the morning. It's not really that early for the cycle now, and as it's going into so close to 9 a.m., you can see whether people start to pick this up. Okay, so I'm just kind of patiently watching to see what the effect will be here. I'm so looking forward to the days just of really exciting movement in the market. I have this feeling that if we can just pick up, our first 30, 40, 50 subscribers in that process and we're able to work it together when things really start to move, it's going to be so exciting because, it has been, that challenge of the slowdown to me was not so much finding positions. That ended up being the thing that encouraged me, even though we would get stuck in the surprises on the way down. There's always those knee jerks that just nobody could really do anything about, of course, except most people are willing to put like a negative 7, 10, 12% stop loss on something. And for us, we're, making up 5, 7, 10% would mean losing a day or two. We're usually doing more than the percentage that we're trying to accomplish. The market has slowed down, yes, that much, where it's almost impossible to even keep up that pace. But we're doing so much more than the average, it's ridiculous. But we did get a glimpse of just that really exciting movement where things were just jetting around and you could ride positions up and down and up and down. And, we develop those skills to look for those things and to kind of slow down the process and continue to do those things. But my real natural instinct and my best abilities are in that pace of the market that nobody else can handle. Just, not getting stuck on the cliff. We would get into so many good positions before having to have that happen. So here we go. This is a little bit, it's strange, but this is kind of like a positive reaction to a little bit of a sell-off happening with Bitcoin. It's sitting at $39.49, and it just processed, just looking at the size of the orders, just at a third of a Bitcoin, another third of a Bitcoin, half Bitcoin, third of a Bitcoin, full Bitcoin. So people are buying in at the lower amounts now. $39.48 they're buying in. Just brought it back up to $39.49. Now I just feel like a tired auctioneer. The tired auctioneer is not selling things very well. All right, so it's very interesting that at 0.23, it's able to get enough math out of these positions surrounding the order book to clear things slowly. But this is really good to see these buy-ins, but you can also see that they're like a couple minutes in between. The reason that the pace matters so much is because you need to see momentum. You know, people get scared and pull out of things when they see it sit for too long. And right now, you know, even 1 and 2 minutes is a long time. So I'm letting stuff that, you know, if it did drop down to 427 and then come back up to 433, I'd be fine with that. So, I mean, it's not like I'm putting it in a false position, but I am putting it there while watching to see what the reaction is going to be. Meanwhile, Doc is just really stuck, hovering back and forth, doing its binary thing, sitting back and forth between 240 and 41. It's already gone through a thinner thin out than what it's doing right now, so there's a chance that it could bump against 242. That might give a signal for people to do more there as well. I'm more focused on TNT right now just because I think that the volume that it's got, it hasn't fallen too much yet, and it's actually holding at a better value than what Bitcoin is doing. It's now, as we were talking, is in the 68 million range, while still holding on to that 39.50 range. You know, it's sitting right there on the edge. Just watching to see what it's able to do. 0.34, 0.1. Okay. Yeah, see now Bitcoin really needs to show that it could come back up. This next cycle is fairly significant for Bitcoin. Don't want it to settle into the 39.40s. Here, I'll show you what I'm looking at. I highly encourage you, while we're doing this stuff, to have, you know, if you're on a laptop or a desktop doing your main trading, which I highly recommend, you know, not trying to do it on your handheld devices. You're going to want to really be able to punch in things quickly when you get better and better at this. But you should always have, you know, I like to say it in terms of, you know, you should always have Bitcoin on your sidecar, you know, whether you have 2 laptops or whether you have a laptop and a tablet or a laptop and a smartphone or a desktop and any of those combinations, what have you. You know, you should always have Bitcoin in the corner of your eye. And one of the other things I am going to talk about in advanced stuff is to... What? Where'd you go? There you are. Okay, so you can see 68, 650, 39.49. People are selling, you know, pennies difference at a time. People are buying back in at those prices. Check that out. Buy, 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 buy. Isn't that crazy? Look at some of the extremes in the cells up here. Very interesting. So some people will say that this is trading sideways. I don't really agree. I just, you know, it's not, you know, ideal for getting in and out of positions. But what I would rather see it stay in a very narrow range and do tons of traffic and, you know, just pennies of differences. There's so many different orders, thousands of orders. that people are, just clearing out and in the 70s and the 60s and the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and holding in that same range, picking up steam. The volume matters that much in Bitcoin. So here we are back over at TNT. And I would just love to see it be able to hold into this range, because same with other coins, whether I'm in them or not, ONT, this is just it holding. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. I'd like to see that same kind of thing happen with TNT and DOC and Steam and OST. We're in those positions for a reason. So same kind of pattern, but I would like to see it be able to hold up there. 790 isn't quite enough, currently to handle these sells. Oh, it's just so close to picking up. I know you can do it. I know you can. So just a little bit of teaching down here. You can see that these are the values of the positions. So the buys, come up to meet where the sells are. And the sells, gradually you have more and more value over here, more volume, more people wanting to sell at a higher level. So these are people looking to sell the 460s. We're in this range right here. And then, there's this breakoff point around 410, because it is a round number. There's a lot more people that want to buy in starting in this range. So the question becomes, if there's just enough of a shift here, are they willing to come up to, 411, 412, in the 420s and 30s to, see the potential in getting out over here? If that starts to happen, okay, and that's a good sign. 791 instead of 790. That, can't happen in a 24-hour cycle unless that is actually happening currently, so that's good. Please tell me that I haven't been... Yep, I've been muted during that time. Oh, how long have I been muted? I apologize for that. So our positions here go back to around December. Was it December? Yes, it was December. So you can see that this has been taking some time. That was the first of the bounce backs from the infamous Bitcoin Cash hard fork. Affected everything in the market, no question about it. I apologize for having that on mute all that time. That was not good. And then you had to hear a little burp too. Oy, not right. So let's look at our TNT again. Yeah, I'm really sorry. That's embarrassing. Okay. Come on. TNT. All right, so now we're actually kind of looking at a 15-minute, which is what a lot of people would be looking at. Curious. Okay, not the case on the 30, but on the 15, we can see it. You know, it looks like it is continuing to narrow. And if it does that in the upper 430s, that doesn't really bother me so much because the breakout could very easily go ahead and resolve our positions. If it happens while I'm watching it, I might even adjust our positions upwards towards it. It's just, you know, it's always, you have to be cautious when doing that. Here's the 240. Let me show you back and forth with TNT. Okay, here's TNT, DOC, TNT. Do you see the similarity in those positions and why we went in with both of them kind of with the same expectations at the same time? So let's look at that in comparison to some other things that have been on the upwards side. Not the same, not the same, not the same. A little bit of similarity, not really the same. Not the same. A little bit of similarity, not the same. So, you know, these are a little bit risky to get into, a little bit risky to get into. A number of numbers. Nav, like to see be able to get into the 430 range. RIN, much higher, much higher. OST's holding at 595. You can see that it's narrowing as it gets higher, so it's kind of getting. It's not so much that it is cycling up and down to hit that resistance level at the top over and over, but that the whole thing is coming up to that resistance level. It's narrowing as it gets up there. You can see it had movement. It is tightening in here, which if that means that it breaks out and hits a new resistance level, that's fantastic. And I really, you know, I'm intentionally using language that you're going to find elsewhere so that it's consistent, but I think there's much better ways to describe what we're trying to do when we're looking at support and resistance. So I went ahead and made just a really simple video on that. But when we look at advanced stuff, I really want to talk more about my technique and how I think there's more helpful ways to look at that and being able to choose positions based on what's happening. Okay, so the dip from 39.49 to 39.50 is enough to pull it from the 431, 432 range. We're still seeing the oscillation with 240 and 241 happening with DOC. So, okay, 39.52, boom. That helped it level out at 432. So I am curious what my adjustment to how that shifted will do. And then, because I'm unsure, I'm not going to mess with the other stuff right now. Still holding 791. That's good. So if it goes back up to 432 instead of coming down to 429, that'll be really good. So 432 is the one that we're wanting to see it do, because I mean I think it actually could eat through some of those positions and people would buy into 433. So barely touched 432. Is it going to go back up to it or not? Here's some of that shift. Bitcoin's at 39.49 again. Usually I don't, call these back and forth so, close to such, just a couple of dollars, but it really is having that effect because the volume is dropping. And if it drops much further, there's going to be a shift in the relation to all those altcoins. So anything that we're currently holding, other people are currently holding, there's, either going to be a drop in its value again, or there'll be some of those unpredictable spikes, and we'll have to look at which ones those are. So that'll be really interesting. All right, I'm watching those shifts that are happening down in 419 and 418. Just watch the order book there for a bit. Yep. It's able to take from some of those positions as they reorganize. Those aren't always people putting new positions in or taking potential buy limit orders out. The order book adjusts towards whatever changes are happening, and it's doing math trying to say, can I take from some of these lower positions and place them up here, average things out, find the median, and then execute orders. Alrighty. No, not 429. Stay up in the top. Much more impressive when you stay up there. Okay, so let's see what happens here. Bitcoin's at 67 million now, so it has come down at least another 5 million in the amount of volume that it's doing. It's very slow, which, I'm just going to look at that as an opportunity for it to pick up. There's not a lot of shift happening over here. I'm going to look at the bigger list here, not just our favorites. So waves, I think, is going to have room between 7,100 and 7,300 if you're looking to make something in there. It's not the right moves for what we're looking for right now, but it's something to keep an eye on. IOST is now not doing those 208s. Yep, there it is. That also means that it might have some room to come back up. I think it does. So this little lip right here is kind of important because it could fall beneath 200 again and have trouble getting back up. But if this is, the end of this trend and this is the beginning of a new one, then it wouldn't take long for it to do, 201 to 205, and that would be a nice little profit. BCPT, a little bit disappointed. It's kind of losing its momentum there. We really prefer it over here. It was doing really well in this range. Yeah, you can see it was doing well over here. So its long term really should be much higher than the 8s. Did bottom out in the 7s over there. But this really, this is more where it belongs. It lives up here. And you can see that it's trying to recover from the Bitcoin Cash hard fork period of time. So it started to here, it started to here, started to here, there, and now it's trying again. So we would like to see it. I don't think we have any, we don't have any BCPT over here. We do have it on the browser account. Same thing for Raven. Everybody loves Raven. Need to see a lot happen there. Storm really belongs more in the 80s. Bobby. So, everything's in the same boat right now. Everything needs to come up, kind of by the same percentages right now. Everything is sitting pretty flat, which we don't want that to be the morning message, especially getting through the end of the month cycle, and it's a short month at that. So we'd just like to see much better things happening there. So right now, I think, every time I think that I'm going to go ahead and stop, something interesting seems like it might be happening with Bitcoins. And meanwhile, Doc is just, fluttering back and forth between 240 and 241. It hasn't stopped this entire time. But I can almost guarantee it will the second that I decide to end this for now. So we'll probably do an update later on, kind of come back in and see what's going on there. So I appreciate you guys. I think I am going to cut this short, hoping for a 450, 460, 470 range for TNT. Hoping for a 262 on Doc. And God bless you guys. We shall be back soon. For now, Archangel Alts out.